Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jordan Bateman, the Director of Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association, joined as always by
Chris Gardner, President of ICBA.
Chris, ICBA is part of quite a significant coalition of major business groups who have together filed a submission to the BC Labor Code, Labor Relations Code Review. We've joined a number of organizations, including BC Chamber of Commerce, Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Manufacturers and Exporters, Restaurants Canada.
There's a lot.
13, the Urban Development Institute, 13 organizations representing employers to come up with this single submission. Why don't you tell us kind of exactly, what this Labor Code review is all about, and maybe what some of our concerns are?
So, all British Columbians should be thinking about this. This is very significant. For the last 2 decades, British Columbia has enjoyed relative labor peace. There hasn't been any major private sector workforce stoppage. That certainty and that stability has allowed our economy to grow and create opportunities and jobs for British Columbians. The new NDP government has decided to take a look at the code, and this review could lead, and we're concerned about radical changes in the code, which would change the fairness and the balance that's in the current code and potentially impact our economy, shake business confidence, and that would impact negatively jobs and opportunities for everyone in British Columbia.
Yeah, a little bit of history. I mean, obviously the 70s and 80s, especially the 80s, there was a lot of labor disputes in British Columbia. 90s came along, the NDP government, the Harcourt government, started a consultative process on the Labor Code. 92, 93, there were some changes. Also in 2002, under the Campbell administration, there were some changes. But that kind of marriage between those two sort of ideals have come up with a pretty fair and balanced Labor Code. Look, there's things we would love to change. I'm sure there are lots of things the unions would love to change. But by and large, it's worked for British Columbia, and the proof has been in our economic growth. That's right.
It is working. It's working effectively. It's a model for other jurisdictions. And again, because I grew up in the 80s, and I remember strikes and labor discord that was very significant and was sending a very negative signal to investors that, hey, British Columbia is maybe not a place you want to look at making investments and creating jobs and opportunities. So we've had relative labor peace for the last 20 years. We need to keep that going forward. We live in a very competitive global economy. British Columbia is a small, open economy that relies on investment from companies to grow and create jobs for everyone in the province. So to change the code in a radical direction that would take the fairness and the balance out of the code would send a very negative signal to investors, both within Canada and outside of Canada.
Yeah, and the reason we're sounding the alarm on this is because the NDP government, obviously chock full of labor activists. A huge percentage of their cabinet ministers, their really only work or life experience is union organizing, and we can sense that this could swing the other way here if there isn't due diligence done, which would be catastrophic for the workers of this province because so many of them will be put out of work. Let's highlight kind of 6 key points here. You can see our full submission, ICBA-independent.ca. It'll be there shortly. Our 6 key things. First of all, protecting the secret ballot, and this is really as important an issue to ICBA as there is.
Listen, there's nothing more fundamental to our democracy than the secret ballot. And the secret ballot ensures that when employees decide to make the choice to join a union or not, that decision is made in an environment that respects each individual employee's right to consider the position of the union, to consider the position of management, and make an informed decision through a secret ballot. That ensures that the process is fair, it's balanced, it's transparent. Neither side can coerce the other side. Right. And we need to maintain that sense of stability and fairness in that process so there's an integrity in whether or not employees decide to join a union or not. Our view at ICBA is, listen, if employees decide to join a union, that's their choice, and they make that choice. If it's expressed through a secret ballot, fine. But equally, if they decide not to join a union, they've expressed that fairly through a secret ballot, that should be respected as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just certified or decertified, changing unions.
That's right.
And the funny thing is, if a group workforce wants to change from one union to another, often those are the most vicious of fights because the unions will fight each other. And another reason why you should have a secret ballot, because coercion can be a big problem. You don't want folks, forcing each other to sign cards, union cards at kids' soccer games, showing up at people's houses. That's not the way to do business. That's not the way to treat one another professionally. You do it in a secret ballot environment where you actually have the Labor Relations Board involved. kind of making
supervising the vote,
all the
making
checks
sure
and
it's
balances.
fair.
Exactly. Just like we have Elections BC managing, our electoral process, making sure it's fair and honest. LRB does the same for labor relations. We want labor-employer balance on the LRB. That's the Labor Relations Board. Right now, there's 4 union reps to 2 employer reps. We think it should be balanced as it has been in the recent past. That just makes sense, right? We want to protect essential services. The code actually has a very strong court-tested essential services component. So if you don't want police and fire and ambulance walking off the jobs, you want to make sure that those essential services are protected. We want to talk about protecting employees' and personal information, because this is an important one.
Well, this is an important one. In some jurisdictions, there's been a big debate over whether or not, if a union starts to approach a company, an employee group that's not unionized, that they have the ability to ask the company to provide all the personal contact information for those employees. In our view, that betrays the privacy responsibility of the employer. I don't think there's anyone in this day and age, and you're seeing it now play out in terms of Facebook and how Facebook protects personal data, or in some cases may not have protected personal data. We think that until a company has been certified through a secret ballot process, that the personal contact information of those employees should be safeguarded by the company.
Yeah, that just makes sense. And we actually believe it would violate the FOI, Freedom of Information and Personal Privacy Act, to do otherwise, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. Preventing legislative sectoral bargaining. This is when government comes in and says that one coffee shop labor unionizes, therefore sectoral bargaining. Every single coffee shop across the province should have the same deal as those workers at that one coffee shop.
That doesn't make sense.
That to me is crazy. I mean, how do that is union activism as purest form, and that is ideology before any kind of evidence-based decision-making. And then finally, ending governments dictating the choice of employees through project labor agreements. And Chris, I know that you've looked into PLAs quite a bit.
Yeah, this is something that where in the past, and you'll hear a lot of conversations now about what the form of labor contracts that were employed in the 1990s, where basically companies would bid work, and if they won the work, their employees would have to become employees of a government contracting entity. And that just flies in the face of fairness, of equity, and employee choice. And the other thing it does, and you heard Premier Horgan say this 2 weeks ago, where he stood up and he was addressing a group of union supporters, and he said that we're going to use PLAs to ensure, project labor agreements, to ensure that only union workers would be doing the work on the new Patella Bridge. That's a $1 billion project to replace the Patella Bridge, which is 83 years old. So if you think of that, you're taking taxpayers' dollars from all the taxpayers in British Columbia, and you're going to channel that into about 13% of the construction workforce, which are unionized. That's just wrong. It's not fair. And you're denying opportunities.
It's favoritism, is what it is.
Yeah, you're denying opportunities to the other 87% of the construction workforce in this province that aren't members of the unions that are supporting Premier Horgan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's favoritism. It's tilting the playing field. And just think to yourself, when you're going about your business today, if you could only choose from 13% of a market, how much more that 13% would mark up their prices? Again, this is about ideology for the NDP and their union activists, not about evidence-based decision-making. The evidence is clear. British Columbia has a secure labor market. The code has been working. If it ain't broke, let's not fix it.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so for more on this, ICBA.ca, ICBAindependent.ca to see the actual labor relations code review. Feel free to leave comments here. You can email me, Jordan@ICBA.ca, or follow us at ICBA BC on Twitter. Thanks for watching.